Hello everyone, and welcome to the second episode of the Do Something podcast. Before we begin, I want to thank you all for such an incredible response to our first episode. We're so excited to bring you more content and really bring together a community of people that are looking to improve themselves and get the most out of life. On this second episode, we're going to be talking about a book called Make Your Bed by Navy SEAL General William H. McRaven. And we hope you stick around, and we hope this episode inspires you to do something.
In the book, there was 10 specific points, I believe, that he covers that are everyday, like, sayings, I guess, that you hear, like, never give up, type things like that. But his stories gave it a whole other meaning and a whole other, like, background, and you can relate a lot to these stories. One of the ones that at least relate to me a lot with my anxiety and stuff is a chapter where, like, the theme kind of was almost like never ask why me. And what was very interesting about this is in the book, it gave a really specific example of when the author went to the combat hospital and saw a 19-year-old was Ranger Bates in the hospital. And the story behind why he was there, he's on his very first combat mission. He got his legs blown off and was there. And the thing is, though, thought what was so interesting is that, like, there was no complaints whatsoever. And like, as I was reading this portion, I was just thinking to myself, like, that couldn't be me. That could not be me. Like, how would you, like, your very first combat mission, okay? And one misstep, like, on a mine, I believe it was, I can't remember.
Yeah.
Like, just like, the only thing that would be going through my mind is, like, why me? Like, why that one spot?
I put, like, all this effort in.
Yeah,
and
exactly.
All of a sudden
It's kind of, yeah. Not to say he can't, like, do great things, but, like, his, I guess, passion or what he wanted to do definitely
his life got flipped upside down.
Yeah, definitely. That's an obstacle for sure. So, I don't know. I just think that that's a great mindset to have. When I get bad anxiety, that's definitely not what I think at all. It just is like the whole idea of, like, why me? Like, that's something I need to work on. I'm pointing this chapter out as saying, like, this is something I'm not very good at that I need to work on. But I don't know. I just took a lot from that one because I, like, why me? That saying, that phrase, like, is something that would pop into my head, like, all the time. So I just think it's important to not do that. Like,
yeah, it's like just be like, okay,
like,
I understand the situation I'm in right now.
Yeah.
I have to accept the situation. Like, it's out of my control. What can I do to move on, or what do I do? Yeah, I 100% agree.
If you don't mind, this, like, flows right into my next part.
Yeah.
The next thing that also really stood out to me is the chapter that talked about failure makes you stronger. Obviously, I mean, that's not the first time I've heard that, but the story behind it was very, very meaningful to me. There's this thing called the circus in Navy SEAL training, and if you can't complete any of the physical activities during the day, you have to participate in this this circus
event after like, all the workouts and stuff,
which is added exercises and everything. And from what I got from the book, it's kind of like the gulag in Warzone.
Yeah.
Because what happens is, like, if you fail the circus, you're out. So, like, you have to do the circus, and it's added work on top of what you already did all day. So that would be terrible. But the end of the story is the author and his buddy would consistently go to the circus because they kept messing up these day trainings. But when it came to the real tests, like a really, really long swim, they outswam everyone else by a very, very large amount. So
that was a very inspirational chapter.
No, exactly. Yeah. The takeaway from this is that, you know, like, I saw it, like, throughout the whole chapter so far, like, I saw it as, like, dang, like, the circus is bad, like, that's not good. I would be so stressed out, all that stuff. But in reality, like, the circus improved their physical strength so much compared to everyone else that this like failure actually turned out to like really help them in the long run. I think a lot of these things are easier looked at in the future. It's easier for me to look back and be like, yeah, you know what, that was good that happened, you know. But I think it's just important for me to try to keep in mind that like when a failure happens, when something goes wrong, be like, think of ways like, you know what, maybe that actually did help me out in the long run. Let's say in the future, like I fail a class or something that I needed to get. Well, let's say like failing that class leads me on a different inspiration. Like I just no longer am as interested in that and I take it somewhere else. I mean, I don't know, but it's just important to kind of have that mindset. And that's, I guess, another chapter that I took a lot from.
For me, I want to add on a little bit about like that chapter too. It's like, I like junior year, I was like very obsessed with like watching all these like motivational videos and whatnot. And like one thing that always kept popping up in like these motivational videos were like, don't view failure as like, oh, you lost or like you give up or something like that, but like see failure as like a learning experience. Like you learn from like what you just failed at, and like you can take that, see what you learned, and then do the same thing and then see if you succeed the second time. If not, keep on doing it, learn some more until you do. And that's like I think that's like what this chapter really explained, and what you explained pretty well as well, is like not going through life. Like I feel like every time like failure in this society has like this bad connotation of like, oh, you failed, like you're not worth it, or like it's like failure. Sometimes failure can be like a great thing, like you just explained. Failure can open up your eyes to so many more possibilities, give you the motivation to keep on pursuing the same thing, or give you a whole nother outlook into the situation as well. So I think that's like, if I were to word it in a couple words, it'd be like, don't see failure as like a loss, but see failure as like a learning opportunity, a learning moment. So that's probably like
and another quote that I want to throw in there from the book is, "We are how we deal with life's misfortunes."
That was a big one.
That was so powerful to me, because I mean, I don't need to explain the whole story again, but like that's so powerful because that's so true. Like everyone, I feel like everyone in their prime, like in their best, can do well, but it's like what makes you who you are is when you're not on your best, and how you can take that and become better, if that makes sense.
And like that also kind of relates to one of the other chapters in the book, which was like find your rowing buddy or something similar to that. Where it's like in the book, they'd have to go out in the morning and like paddle through like super rough waves and whatnot. And sometimes like somebody was sick, or somebody was like not feeling it and wasn't on 100%. But that's over. But like exactly what that quote said is like, you are who you are like on your worst moments. It's like, it's being able to like, maybe you're feeling down, but at the same time you still bring up that like pride, that energy to like help the person right next to you. It's very important, I feel like, to have like one person that you can always like lean back on, or somebody who can help like carry the weight when you're not on your 100%. Like some people, like for me, or like my brother, or like my family, even Camden here is like somebody like we can always just sit down and I can trust him in like having a conversation and just like helping me get through like a day or like a problem I'm having, and just sharing it with him. So
and I want to reiterate that like I'm hoping that like this podcast brings that community. Like that's our goal, because I mean I'm hoping that all you guys have someone to talk to about like these deep things, about your life, about struggles and everything. But we also want to like let you guys know that we're equally as here for you.
And just like what Camden said, we want to foster a community of like people that we have your backs. Like, hey, I mean, we're only just like two 19-year-olds. We're not up here on this podcast like saying, oh, we know everything, we're better than you or anything. Exactly. We genuinely care about people. So hey, we want to foster a community, people that are interested in like promoting like happiness and like being like reaching the goals that they've set for themselves. And of course, like there's going to be some days where you set some goals and you're not on 100%, so you just don't make any progress, and that's fine. Me, I've had days like that. I'm 100% sure you've had days like that.
Why do you say it like that?
But like still, like, hey, feel free to like talk to us. Like that's the type of community that we're trying to build here. And this is like a perfect transition to kind of like our 1% and like how to improve ourselves 1%.
Yeah, so I'll explain the 1% idea. Like all this information is great. All these like deep discussion that we had about what we think we should do better on and everything, that's great, but it doesn't do that much without action. So our 1% idea is an action towards a goal. And at the end of every single episode, we're going to be giving ourselves a 1% that we're going to stay true to so that we can get closer to our goals. And it's going to be in line with the podcast topic. Yeah. Do you want to explain what your percent is?
So my 1% or my goal, and then I'll explain the 1%, is like my goal is to go to sleep and wake up at a reasonable time. And like I know as like college students or high school students or like people this age,
I feel like everyone can relate.
Yeah, everyone can relate. It's like, hey, there's been times where you're going to sleep at like 3 a.m. That's not okay. You're waking up at like 1 p.m.
Exactly.
Sometimes that happens a little bit too much in my life. Okay, so my goal is to actually start waking up and going to sleep at a reasonable time. And then like the steps I'm going to take in place is like, hey, turning off all the devices like after 9 o'clock, 11 o'clock or something like that. Making sure I set the alarm far enough so where I'm not just turning it off and hopping back into bed. Those are like 1% small things I can do every single day to make sure that I'm actually hitting those goals or getting closer to reaching that goal of waking up at like a reasonable time. So that's like that was like my goal and then my 1% for this week as well, or just let's see how long.
No, exactly. So yeah, my 1% is definitely along the lines of anxiety. Like if you haven't catch the first episode, definitely make sure to check it out because we definitely explain why we have our goals and more depth and everything. So my goals definitely relate to anxiety. So my 1% that I took from this reading is that when a small thing goes bad in my day, what I'm going to do is I'm going to think of 5 things I'm grateful for every single time something goes bad in my day. The reason I'm going to do that is because, like we were explaining earlier, I kind of, once anxiety hits, I think like, why me? Like I think all this stuff and go down the anxiety hole, which I'm trying to get rid of in a month. But this 1% that I have here is hopefully going to get me to stop like making anxiety, like the feeling of anxiety and like my bad thoughts or whatever so prevalent in my mind. And I'll try to like transition it to a more positive thing. Like, hey, look, I'm still doing okay. Like nothing's like terribly wrong in my life right now or whatever it is. I'm going to think of 5 things I'm grateful for. And that's the step that I'm going to take to get closer to my goals to slowly, hopefully get rid of my anxiety.
Exactly. So, and like, hey, we just stated like some of our goals and our 1%, and we need our community to keep us accountable for that 100%. Because like, we're not going to stay up here and be like, hey, we're going to do this, and this, and then not do it in the back or like once the cameras are not rolling or the microphone's not on. Like, hey, if you know us, if you see us slacking, call us out on it. 100%.
Seriously.
Like this is the whole point of this podcast is to improve and helping each other improve as well. So like, yeah, if you catch us off our game, call us out on it.
Yeah, and we'd really appreciate it if you also send us your 1% at dosomething.podcast on Instagram.
Yeah, not .com quite yet.
Yeah, no, it tripped me up there, but no, we'd love to hear your 1% and your progress as well. So definitely reach out to us about that if you'd like. And also, I mean, I guess, do we want to tease the next episode?
Yeah, so we're currently going to film one more episode. You want to kind of...
Yes. So this episode, I recommended the book. I've actually read it before, and I read it again recently, so I get familiar with it again. But it's of big interest of me. It's called Tao Te Ching. I'm pretty sure I'm pronouncing that right, but I'm not positive. We're reading like some more modern translation. But basically, if I understand correctly, this is knowledge from high school. This book is basically the Taoist Bible, I believe. It's less of a religion and more almost of like a mindset and like like a good mindset to have through life. And I think a lot of the stuff within this book has to do with mental health related things, like calming your mind, and having balance in your life.
Well, if you're still listening to this point, we really appreciate it. Once again, like Camden said, go ahead and send us a DM of your 1% or give us some feedback on this podcast at dosomething.podcast on Instagram. And yeah, thank you so much for listening.
And don't forget to do something.
And that's a wrap.
See you guys. Peace.